right, so today we're diving deep into Solana, looking back at 2024 and then kind of, peeking ahead at what 2025 might have in store.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm excited to dig into this report we've got here. It's a really fascinating overview of the whole Solana landscape. Imagine you're prepping for this big meeting, like a big meeting about the future of blockchain, and you just need to get up to speed on Solana super fast. Well, that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, definitely.
So first things first, the report calls 2024 Solana's comeback year. It's painting this picture of resurgence, like rebuilding after a tough period. What do you think is driving this comeback narrative?
Yeah, well, I mean, remember the whole FTX collapse? That really shook the entire crypto world, and Solana definitely felt it. But this past year, it's really been about resilience for them, not just recovering, but actually stepping up as a major player. The report goes as far as to put Solana in the big three now, right alongside Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Wow, that's a bold statement. So we've got this comeback story, but how are they backing it up? What's actually changing on a technical level?
One of the biggest things is this new Firedancer client. They've nicknamed it Frankenstein, which is kind of catchy.
Yeah, definitely. But is it actually alive?
Okay.
Does Firedancer deliver on its promises?
It's definitely showing potential. It's all about boosting those transaction speeds and improving the scalability of the network. It's like, think about upgrading from dial-up to fiber optic internet.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And they're rolling it out in phases, which is a smart move. And it still kind of relies on the existing Agave client for now. But the report suggests this is really just the beginning, the start of a much faster, more robust Solana network.
So faster speeds, greater capacity. What does that actually mean for developers and everyday users?
Yeah, well, for developers, it means they can build way more complex applications, more ambitious stuff, without being held back by network limitations. And for users, it's all about a smoother experience, faster transactions, lower fees, and just the ability to handle way more activity.
Gotcha. So we've got Firedancer speeding things up, but what about costs? Building on a blockchain can get expensive, especially with all the data storage.
Right, and that's another area where Solana's made big progress. They've managed to really cut down on those on-chain storage costs. There's this really interesting case study in the report about Helium Labs and Light Protocol. They partnered up to use something called ZK Compression. It's kind of technical, but basically, they found a way to shrink the amount of data that needs to be stored on the blockchain.
So like packing for a trip with one of those vacuum seal bags, you can bring more stuff without taking up as much space.
Exactly. And that means big savings. The report gives an example. Creating and managing accounts on Solana, it used to cost hundreds of dollars. Now, thanks to ZK Compression, it's down to like $50.
Wow, that's a massive difference. What kind of impact does that have on the whole Solana ecosystem?
Well, it makes it way more accessible for developers, especially those smaller teams or startups with tighter budgets. Suddenly, building on Solana becomes much more realistic, which could lead to a wave of new projects and cool innovations.
So cheaper storage, faster speeds. Are we sensing a theme here? It sounds like Solana is all about removing those barriers and just making it easier to build and use these blockchain applications.
Absolutely. That focus on accessibility seems to be paying off too. The report shows that Solana has become this major hub for DeFi now. Decentralized finance. In fact, they overtook Ethereum in the number of active DeFi projects in 2024.
Really? So they're taking on the king of DeFi. That's a bold move.
Yeah.
What's drawing all these DeFi projects to Solana?
Well, it's partly those technical advantages we talked about, the speed, the scalability, the low costs, but it's also about the community. Solana has cultivated a really active and passionate developer community. They've built this space where innovation is really encouraged, and that's super attractive to projects looking to push the boundaries of DeFi.
Yeah, it sounds like a classic David and Goliath situation, the scrappy underdog challenging the giant.
It's a compelling story, for sure, but the report also makes the point that it's not just about copying what Ethereum's done. Solana's forging its own path, exploring new things, and pushing the limits of what's possible with this technology.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So we've got this comeback story, the tech upgrades, the DeFi dominance. What else is happening in the Solana world? Anything we should be keeping an eye on?
Well, one thing that stands out is the development of these token extensions. They're basically add-ons that enhance the functionality of tokens on the Solana network.
So like giving your token superpowers.
Exactly. And one area where these token extensions are making waves is in confidentiality. Imagine tokens that could be used for private transactions, secure data sharing, or even things like confidential payroll. The report dives into some really fascinating use cases.
Okay, confidential transactions, secure data sharing. What would be a real-world example of that?
Well, think about artists as musicians. They could use these confidential tokens to get royalty payments directly, right from streaming platforms, making sure they get paid fairly and transparently. Or imagine a company using them for business-to-business payments, keeping all that sensitive financial data safe and sound.
This is starting to sound pretty futuristic.
Mhm.
But this is happening now, right? Are these token extensions actually being used yet?
They're starting to gain traction. The report mentions that PayPal is already using them for certain transactions, which is a pretty big deal.
Wow, that's a strong endorsement. So we've got the speed, the affordability, this booming DeFi scene, and now these game-changing token extensions. 2024 was a busy year for Solana, but I'm guessing it doesn't end there, right? What's next for them?
Well, there's a lot of buzz around the potential of their Layer 2 solutions, or L2s. Think of them like extra lanes on a highway, allowing for even more traffic and faster speeds.
So even more speed and scalability on top of what they've already done. What are the implications of that?
It could be huge, especially for applications that need super high throughput or very low latency, like gaming, high-frequency trading, or even running complex simulations.
This is really starting to feel like we're stepping into the future of blockchain. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's break down those L2s a bit more. What are they exactly, and how do they work?
Okay, so imagine you've got the base layer, which is the main Solana blockchain. Then on top of that, you build these secondary layers, these L2s, that handle some of the transactions. It takes some of the load off the main chain, making everything faster and more efficient.
Okay, so like multi-level highway system, different layers handling different types of traffic. That's a pretty clever approach.
It is, and the report highlights how these L2s could be a key part of Solana's growth in the future. They say that the first Solana L2 is expected to launch in 2025, and there's a lot of anticipation building around that.
So a lot of potential, a lot of excitement, but I'm guessing there are also challenges ahead, right?
Of course. No technology is perfect,
Yeah.
but we'll get into those challenges and what they might mean for Solana's future. In the next part of our deep dive,
All right, cliffhanger.
yeah, those L2s could really help with some of those network issues, like those outages we've seen in the past.
Yeah, reliability, super important. If people can't depend on the network, they're going to go somewhere else. So what are the L2s doing differently that might help with that?
It's all about spreading out the work. By shifting some of that processing to these secondary layers, it takes the pressure off the main Solana blockchain. The report talks about companies like SoForge and Sovereign Labs. They're already building out these network extensions. It's like building in some redundancy, so even if there's a hiccup on the main chain, the network overall can keep running smoothly.
Okay, so greater resilience, more stability, those are definitely attractive features. But what's the big picture here? How do these L2s fit into Solana's strategy?
It's all about expanding what's possible. L2s unlock new use cases, they bring in more developers, and they just create this more robust, versatile ecosystem. It's kind of like building a city with multiple levels. You can fit way more people and activities when you have that extra space.
I like that analogy. But cities also need a strong foundation. What about Solana's core technology? Are there any concerns about whether it can handle all this growth?
That's a good point, and the report actually addresses some of those criticisms. They acknowledge there have been some instability issues, and they're pretty upfront about the need to address them.
So transparency is important. They're not shying away from the challenges. But what are they actually doing to make the network stronger?
It's a multi-pronged approach. First, they're always working on the core code, making it more efficient and less prone to errors. Second, they're investing in security audits and testing, trying to catch vulnerabilities before they become problems. And third, they're working closely with developers to build more resilient applications, ones that can handle the demands of a growing network.
So it's like a two-pronged approach. Improve the underlying technology and build a more resilient ecosystem on top. Makes sense. But even with all these improvements, can Solana really compete with the big players like Ethereum?
It's definitely ambitious, but the report points to some things that could work in Solana's favor. First, they've got a huge speed advantage. Transactions on Solana are processed much faster than on Ethereum, which is a big draw for a lot of applications.
Yes, speed's crucial in the blockchain world. What else have they got?
Second, there are those super low transaction fees we talked about. That makes it way more accessible for everyday users and opens up all sorts of new possibilities.
Okay, speed. Affordability was the third factor.
This one's a big one. They're getting a lot of attention from institutional investors. The report mentions all these ETF filings from companies like VanEck, Bitwise, and 21 Shares. These are the major players in the investment world, and they're putting their money on Solana.
That's a big signal that Solana is being taken seriously, even by those traditional finance folks. But let's look at the other side of the coin. What are some of the challenges that Solana might face?
Well, one obvious challenge is just how dominant Ethereum is. It's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It's not going to be easy to dethrone them.
Right, Ethereum has that first mover advantage. It's built up this network effect that's tough to replicate. But are there other competitors out there? Or is it just a two-horse race?
Oh, no, not at all. The blockchain space is super dynamic. There are new projects popping up constantly. The report even mentions some credible competitors, especially in the layer 1 space. Projects like Sui and Aptos are making some noise. They're worth keeping an eye on.
So it's a crowded field. Everyone wants a piece of the pie. What does Solana need to do to stand out?
The report really emphasizes focusing on what makes Solana unique. Keep pushing those boundaries of speed and scalability. Keep nurturing that developer community. And focus on real-world uses that show the value of their technology.
So it's not just about building a faster blockchain. It's about building a better ecosystem, a stronger community, and a more compelling vision for the future.
Exactly. And that's where those token extensions could be really important.
Right, those superpowers for tokens. That could give Solana a real edge, especially when it comes to attracting developers and building cool new applications. But we also can't ignore the elephant in the room, or maybe the meme coin in the room. The report mentioned this huge surge in activity on Solana, driven by, of all things, meme coin trading. How does that fit in with this idea of building a serious, enterprise-grade platform?
It's an interesting question, right? On one hand, you have these serious investors putting money into Solana, and on the other hand, you have this frenzy of people trading tokens with dog pictures on them.
It's a strange mix. How do we make sense of that?
I think it shows the two sides of blockchain. It's both a place to experiment and a platform for serious innovation, and sometimes the most unexpected things can have a big impact.
So maybe the meme coin craze, while a little silly, actually helped Solana.
Yeah, it brought in new users, got them familiar with the platform, and maybe spark their interest in what else is possible.
Like a gateway to the rest of the Solana world.
Exactly.
So even though it might seem like a fad, those meme coins played a role. They help drive adoption and get people used to using Solana.
Definitely.
It's a good reminder that innovation can come from anywhere. And even silly things can have a real impact. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here with Solana. Their comeback story, the DeFi boom, the potential of L2s, the challenges they face, and even the meme coin craze. What are your main takeaways?
I think the biggest one is that Solana is a force to be reckoned with. They've made incredible progress, and they're not slowing down.
They've definitely caught everyone's attention, from big investors to regular users.
Yeah.
But as we talked about, there are definitely challenges ahead.
For sure. The blockchain world is super competitive. Solana's going to have to keep innovating to stay ahead.
Yeah, they're going to have to keep pushing the boundaries.
But they've got a solid foundation, a passionate community, and they're really focused on building the future. I think they're in a good position to make a real impact.
It's a story of resilience, innovation, and some healthy disruption. Who knows what's next for Solana? But it's definitely to be an exciting ride.
I agree. It's been a fascinating deep dive. Thanks for walking us through this complex world.
It's been my pleasure. And for everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Solana. Now, something that really jumped out at me from the report, Solana actually overtook Ethereum in terms of on-chain application fees for Bit in 2024.
Yeah,
it's a pretty big deal. Ethereum's been the leader for so long when it comes to on-chain activity. What caused that spike in fees on Solana?
Well, the report mentions a couple of things. One is just the growing popularity of DeFi on Solana. We talked about how they overtook Ethereum in the number of active DeFi projects. All that activity leads to more transactions, and transactions mean fees.
So more DeFi users on Solana equals more fees. Makes sense. But the report also mentioned something else, something a little more unexpected.
Right. We can't forget about all the meme coin trading. That actually contributed a lot to Solana's fee revenue.
So those meme coins, even though some people think they're just a joke, they help push Solana ahead of Ethereum.
Yeah, at least for a little while. It shows you how technology can evolve in unexpected ways. Sometimes the most unexpected things can have a big impact. In this case, meme coins brought a whole new group of users to Solana.
It's like they were a gateway to the rest of the Solana ecosystem. People started with meme coins, got comfortable with the platform, and then started exploring other things like DeFi and NFTs.
Exactly.
So even if meme coin trading fades away, it still played an important role.
It helped people get familiar with Solana.
Okay, so it's a reminder that innovation can come from anywhere, and that even things that seem silly can have a real impact. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Solana. We talked about their comeback, their success in DeFi, the potential of L2s. the challenges they're facing, and even the surprising role of meme coins.
Yeah.
What are your big takeaways from all of this?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that Solana is a real contender in the blockchain space. They've come a long way in a short amount of time, and they're not slowing down.
They've definitely got everyone's attention,
Yeah.
from serious investors to everyday users.
Hmm.
But like we said, there are definitely some challenges ahead.
Yeah, the competition is fierce. Solana will have to keep innovating to stay ahead.
They can't just rest on their laurels.
Right, they need to keep pushing the boundaries, but they've got a strong foundation, a passionate community, and they're really committed to building the future of blockchain. I think they have what it takes to make a real difference.
So it's a story of resilience, innovation, and shaking things up a bit. Who knows what the future holds for Solana? But it's definitely going to be an exciting ride.
I agree. This has been a fascinating deep dive. Thanks for guiding us through it all.
It's been my pleasure. And to all of you listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Solana. Until next time, stay curious.